The Senate chamber smelled of old metal and older pride. 1,200 seats, carved from polished black stone, rose in slow circles toward a ceiling painted with the maps of every world the Galactic Concord had ever touched. Earth was on that ceiling too, painted small, painted near the edge. Daniel Rose sat in the human delegate box, alone. He was 46 years old, with gray already creeping into his beard, and his hands rested quietly on his knees. He had been told this morning that the vote would not go well. He had been told the night before that the vote would not go well. He had been told, in truth, for the last 2 years. Still, he had come. High Speaker Olaf rose from the central platform. The old senator was tall, his skin the color of pale river stone, his eyes deep and tired. He had once shaken Daniel's hand and called humanity interesting. That word, Daniel had learned, was the most dangerous word in the Concord language. The motion before this Senate, Olaf said, his voice carrying through the still air, is the full and permanent exile of the human species from all charted Concord space. The vote shall be public. The vote shall be final. Daniel did not move. He had practiced not moving for weeks. The senators voted in the old way, by raising their right hands. Daniel watched the hands rise. He watched them slowly, the way a man watches rain begin to fall on a field he had hoped to harvest. The hands kept rising. When the count was finished, the chamber was so quiet that Daniel could hear the soft hum of the lights above him. 841 in favor, 312 against, 47 abstaining. The motion had passed. Olaf turned toward the human box. His face was not cruel. It was simply certain. "Delegate Rose," he said, "the Senate offers you the floor. You may speak on behalf of your people." Daniel stood. He did not shout. He did not weep. He did not raise his hands or beg for time. He simply walked from the box to the central floor, slow and steady, and stopped before the platform. Every eye in the chamber was on him. The senators were waiting. They had prepared for this. They had brought extra security. They had drafted responses for anger, for grief, for threats, for tears. They had not drafted a response for what came next. Daniel bowed. It was a small bow, the kind a man gives a host who has hosted him for many years and is now asking him to leave. He held it for 3 seconds, no more, no less. "Thank you," he said, "for your honesty." Then he turned and walked out of the chamber. He did not look back. The doors closed behind him with a soft, heavy sound. In the chamber, no one spoke for a long time. A junior senator near the back finally whispered to her neighbor, "Was that all?" Her neighbor did not answer. He was watching the doors. Outside, in the long marble corridor that led to the human shuttle bay, Daniel walked at a normal pace. His hands did not shake. His face was calm. A young aide named Rima fell into step beside him. She had been crying. He gave her a gentle look, and she stopped. "Sir," she said, "what do we do now?" "We go home," Daniel said. "And we begin." "Begin what?" He smiled, just a little. "Leaving." The shuttle ride to Earth took 6 hours. Daniel slept for 3 of them. When he woke, he opened a private channel to a woman he had known for 20 years, an engineer named Hannah Vale. She answered on the second tone. She was in a workshop somewhere, with grease on her cheek and a small tool still in her hand. "It happened?" she asked. "It happened." She nodded once. "How long do we have?" 2 years to fully withdraw. They want every human off Concord soil. That is enough. "Hannah." Daniel paused. "They are watching us. They expect protests. They expect riots. They expect us to fight." Hannah looked at him through the screen. Her eyes were soft and very tired. "Then we will give them silence," she said. "We will give them the cleanest, quietest goodbye the galaxy has ever seen. And we will leave." "Where?" "I have an idea." She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. "Far. Farther than they will follow." The channel closed. Daniel sat back in his seat and watched the stars stream past the shuttle window. The Concorde had built those stars into a network of beacons and trade routes, of laws and treaties, of polite smiles and sharp warnings. For 40 years, humanity had lived inside that network, smaller than they should have been, quieter than they wanted to be, useful enough to be tolerated. Tonight, that ended. He thought of his daughter, 8 years old, asleep in a small house in a small city on a small continent on a small blue world. He would have to tell her, one day soon, that they were going on a journey. He would not tell her, yet, that they would not return. The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere. Below him, the lights of cities glowed in their familiar patterns. He pressed his palm to the window. Somewhere on the other side of the galaxy, in a Senate chamber, 841 hands had risen against his people. And humanity, in answer, had bowed. For now, rain fell over the shipyards of northern Iceland in long, cold sheets. Hannah Vale pulled her coat tighter and walked across the wet steel platform that overlooked the construction bay. Below her, half-built and lit by yellow work lamps, the first arc was beginning to take shape. It looked, from this height, like the spine of some great creature that had not yet decided whether to be a fish or a bird. She had named it Softlight. 8 months had passed since the vote. Across Earth and her colonies, humanity was packing. There had been no speeches. The president of the Earth Council had sent a single short message on the morning after the exile, 3 lines long. It said only that humanity would be leaving, that the work would be shared by all, and that no one should be left behind. That message had been enough. People had quietly begun to organize. Towns held meetings in school halls. Engineers pulled old designs out of archives. Farmers began to teach city children how to grow food without soil. There had been no panic. There had been only a kind of slow, patient turning, the way a great ship turns in deep water. Hannah watched a welding crew below her finish a long, curved beam. They worked in the rain without complaint. One of them, a young man with a thick beard, looked up and waved at her. She waved back. A soft step behind her made her turn. It was not a human step. Envoy Ressign stood at the edge of the platform, her long gray cloak pulled close against the cold. She was tall, slim, with skin the color of dark sand and eyes that were almost too large for her face. She had come alone, without guards, and her ship was hidden somewhere on the far side of the island. She had asked for this meeting through a private channel 3 days earlier. Hannah had agreed. "You came in the rain," Hannah said. "I wanted to see the ships," Ressign answered. Her voice was careful. "The Concord has been told you are barely managing, that your vessels are crude, that you are building in panic." Hannah smiled a little. "And what do you see?" Ressign looked down at the great curved spine of Softlight. She was quiet for a long moment. "I see something I do not have words for," she said. They walked together down a long covered ramp toward the lower decks. Workers moved past them, nodding politely at Hannah, glancing once at the alien envoy, and then looking away. No one stared. No one shouted. No one even seemed surprised. "Why are they not angry?" Ressign asked at last. "With you? With anyone?" Hannah stopped at a wide window that looked out over the bay. 3 more arcs were rising from their cradles in the distance, lit by the soft glow of work drones. She thought for a moment about how to answer. "My grandmother used to keep bees," she said. "When a bee dies, the hive does not stop. It does not weep. It simply continues its work. That is not because the hive does not care. It is because the hive understands what it is for. And what is humanity for?" "That," Hannah said, "is what we are going to find out." Ressign looked at her for a long time. "Speaker Olith believes you will fail," she said. "He believes you will go a short distance, run out of supplies, and beg to return within 10 years. He has already prepared the speech for that day. He is welcome to keep it. You will not return?" "No." Ressign swallowed. "Engineer Vale, may I ask you something the Concord did not allow me to ask in the chamber?" "Yes." "Why are you not fighting this? You have weapons. You have allies who would have voted with you if you had asked. You could have made the Senate hesitate. You did not even try." Hannah watched the rain run down the window for a few seconds before she answered. "Because some doors," she said softly, "are not worth breaking down. Some are worth walking through and closing softly behind you. If we had fought, we would have spent the next 100 years being a problem the Concord had to manage. Instead, we will spend the next 100 years being something the Concord no longer thinks about. That is a better gift. To them, and to us." Ressin's eyes shone, just a little. "Where will you go?" "Far," Hannah said. "Where the maps end. You may find nothing. Then we will build something." That night, after Ressign had gone, Hannah climbed alone into the unfinished bridge of soft light. She sat in the empty captain's seat, surrounded by bare wires and exposed beams, and she watched the rain fall through the open hull above her. She thought of all the people on Earth who were trusting her. She thought of all the people on Earth who were not waiting for her to fail. She thought of Daniel Rose, working without sleep in the council halls, paying every Concord debt down to the last credit, returning every borrowed piece of technology, leaving no excuse, no loose thread. She thought of her own daughter, who would grow up under 3 moons. She lifted her small tool, the one she always carried, and pressed it against the central console. With a quiet click, the first power line in the bridge came alive. A soft green light bloomed in the dark. Hannah smiled. "Soft light," she whispered. "Wake up slow. We have work to do." Outside, the rain kept falling. Across the bay, 3 more lights bloomed, one by one, like fireflies answering a call no one else could hear. 2 years later, on a clear morning in spring, the arcs lifted from Earth in perfect silence. There were no speeches, no final broadcasts, no final waves, only engines, and stars, and the soft, distant hum of a hive that knew exactly what it was for. 11 years is a long time to fall through the dark. The arcs did not race. They drifted, the way seeds drift on a long wind. Their great engines burned softly, sipping fuel rather than swallowing it, and inside their long, curved hulls, generations of humans were born, grew, learned, and slept again. Some children who first opened their eyes between stars never saw a planet until they were 9 years old. They thought clouds were a kind of strange water. They thought rain was a story their grandparents told. The fleet had left Concord space behind in the first year. By the third, they had passed the last beacon any chart had ever marked. By the 7th, the stars themselves began to look unfamiliar, arranged in patterns no human eye had ever named. The navigators stopped using old maps. They began to draw new ones. And then, in the 11th year, a soft chime woke Hannah Vale from her sleep cycle. Her hair was grayer now. Her hands were rougher. She rose from her cabin and walked to the bridge of soft light in her bare feet, the way she always did when something important was about to happen. The young officers on duty stood when she entered. She waved them back to their seats. The main viewport showed a star. It was a small, gentle star, the color of warm bread. And around it, in a slow, patient orbit, was a world. The world had violet oceans. It had 3 moons. It had wide green continents and high white clouds and a soft band of light around its equator where the air seemed to glow at sunset. The scanners reported breathable atmosphere, mild gravity, and water that was clean enough to drink. There were no other ships in the system. There were no signals. There were no warnings. There was only the world, turning quietly, as if it had been waiting. Hannah stood very still for a long moment. "Bring the fleet in slow," she said at last. "Do not wake the children yet. Let them open their eyes when we are already in orbit. Let their first memory be the color of those oceans." The young officer at navigation, a woman barely 20 years old, nodded with tears in her eyes. They named the world Hearth. The first landing was small and careful. Daniel Rose, 60 years old now, walked down the ramp of the lead shuttle with a young girl holding his hand. She was his granddaughter, born in flight, and she had asked to be the first child to touch the new ground. Daniel had said yes. He had not asked anyone's permission. No one had asked him to. The grass on Hearth was soft and slightly blue. The air smelled faintly of rain and something sweet, like crushed leaves. The girl let go of Daniel's hand and ran in a wide circle, laughing, while behind them the long line of shuttles began to descend through the clouds. Daniel knelt and pressed his palm flat against the ground. "Hello," he said quietly. "We will be gentle with you. We promise." In the years that followed, humanity built without hurry. They had no Concord rules to follow now. No restrictions on their engines. No limits on their medicine. No quiet warnings about which technologies were too disruptive. So they built differently. They built slowly. They asked questions the Concord had never permitted them to ask. Their cities did not rise in tall, sharp towers. They grew, instead, in long, low curves that followed the shape of the land. Their houses had living roofs, with small gardens that grew food and flowers together. Their power came from the slow, patient turning of the 3 moons, from the warmth of the soil, from gentle solar weaves that draped between hills like spider silk. Their ships, when they began to build new ones, were quieter than any vessel the Concord had ever made. The engines did not roar. They hummed. The hulls were not painted in warning colors. They were the color of clean water. And their medicine, a young doctor named Imani Soto, who had been born on the 3rd arc, became famous within 20 years for a treatment she developed almost by accident. She had been studying the way certain hearth plants healed their own torn leaves, and she had found a way to teach human cells the same trick. Wounds that would once have taken weeks now closed in hours. Diseases the Concord had called incurable were cured by a single quiet injection. She did not patent her work. She wrote it down in plain language and gave it to every clinic on the planet. When asked, late in her life, why she had not sold the treatment, she only smiled and said, "Who would I sell it to? My neighbors." Daniel Rose lived to see Hearth's 25th year of settlement. He spent his last decades teaching. Not history, exactly, but something close to it. Every spring, in a small open hall by the Violet Sea, he gathered the young humans who wanted to listen, and he told them the story of the Senate chamber, of Speaker Olith, of the bow he had given before walking out. "Why didn't you fight, grandfather?" a boy asked him once. The boy was perhaps 10 years old, with dark eyes and a serious face. Daniel thought about the question for a long time before he answered. "Because fighting would have made us small," he said. "It would have made our whole people only a wound, only a complaint, only a thing the Concord had hurt. And we are not a wound. We are a people. We have songs and gardens and grandmothers and bad jokes. We have so much more than what they tried to take from us. So we left, and we became all the things they never gave us the room to become." The boy nodded slowly. "Are we hiding, grandfather?" Daniel laughed, soft and warm. "No, child," he said. "We are not hiding. We are simply living where we were told to go." He died that winter, peacefully, in a small house with a living roof. The galaxy did not notice. Not yet. The first world fell on a quiet afternoon. It was a small mining colony on the outer rim of Concord space, called Telon Prime. The miners there were a long-limbed people with soft golden skin and a fondness for sweet tea. They had no warning. One moment, the sky above their settlement was clear. The next, it was dark with something that did not look like ships. The Vern did not come in vessels. They came in shapes. Long, drifting, slow shapes that bent the air around them and made the light go thin. They did not speak. They did not demand surrender. They did not even seem to notice the people below them. They simply began to consume. Within 6 hours, Telon Prime had no atmosphere. Within 9, it had no surface. Within a day, it had no people. The Vern moved on, slow and silent, toward the next system. The Concord sent a fleet. The fleet did not return. They sent a larger fleet. It also did not return. They tried weapons that had defeated 3 previous galactic threats. Nothing worked. Particle beams passed through the Vern's shapes, as if through smoke. Missiles vanished into them and did not detonate. Even the great old Concord dreadnoughts, which had once shattered moons in single shots, were swallowed without a sound. 40 years had passed since the exile of humanity. Speaker Olith was very old now, and very tired, and he sat in the same Senate chamber where he had once raised his hand against the human delegation. The chamber was full again, but the mood was different. The proud certainty of 40 years ago was gone. In its place was something the Concord senators had not felt in many lifetimes. It was fear. World after world had fallen. Whole civilizations the Concord had sworn to protect were now dust. The Vern were perhaps a year from the central Senate world itself. Every ally had been asked. Every weapon had been tested. Every prayer had been spoken. Nothing remained. Envoy Ressign stood at the central platform. Her hair had gone fully silver, but her voice was still careful and clear. She had spent the last 6 months preparing this speech. She had not slept properly in a month. "Honored senators," she said, "I come before you with a proposal that will be hard to hear. I ask that you listen to the end before you answer." The chamber was silent. There is one civilization in this galaxy that has never been touched by the Vern. There is one civilization whose technology has grown in a direction no other species has explored. There is one civilization whose absence from our charts has become, in this dark hour, the only hope we have left. A senator near the front, an older man with pale blue skin, leaned forward sharply. "Envoy, do not say what I think you are about to say." Ressign met his eyes. "The humans," she said. The chamber erupted. It was not a loud eruption. The Concord did not shout, even in panic. But the air filled with sharp whispers, with the soft hiss of disbelief, with the quick, angry tapping of hands on stone armrests. 3 senators stood up at once. 2 sat back down without speaking. 1 walked out. Speaker Olith raised one trembling hand, and the chamber slowly fell quiet. Envoy Ressign, he said. His voice was thinner than it had once been. We exiled them. We told them they were unfit. We told them they would never return. Yes, Speaker. And now you ask me to send a ship to find them and beg them to save us. Ressign drew a long breath. No, Speaker, she said softly. I asked that we send a ship to find them and ask them. Not beg. Not demand. Ask. With humility. With honesty. The way we should have spoken to them 40 years ago. Olaf closed his eyes. For a long moment, he did not move at all. Some of the younger senators thought, briefly, that he had stopped breathing. Then he opened his eyes again. And if they refuse? Then we will die having asked, Ressign said. Which is more than we deserve. The vote was held that night. It was not a public vote, this time. The senators wrote their answers on small white tiles and dropped them into a stone bowl, the old way, the way the Concord had not used in 300 years. Ressign stood at the side of the chamber and watched their hands move. Some of them were shaking. Some of them were weeping silently as they wrote. Speaker Olaf was the last to vote. His hand trembled so badly that the tile clicked twice against the rim of the bowl before it fell. The count took an hour. When the result was read aloud, Ressign had to grip the platform railing to keep her balance. It had passed. Not by a wide margin. Not by a comfortable one. But it had passed. Speaker Olaf rose slowly and turned to face her. Envoy Ressign, he said. You will be given a single courier ship. You will be given no escort. You will be given no weapons. You will be given a sealed message from this Senate, written by my own hand. You will find the humans, if they can be found. You will deliver the message. You will ask, and you will accept whatever answer they give. Yes, Speaker. He took a long, slow breath. Envoy, before you go, I would ask one thing of you, not as a speaker, but as an old man who has been wrong for 40 years. Yes. If they say no, Olaf said, do not blame them. Do not curse them. Thank them for their honesty. The way Daniel Rose once thanked us. We did not understand him then. I have had 40 years to understand him now. Ressign bowed deeply. I will, Speaker. She left the chamber that same night. The courier ship lifted from the Senate world before dawn, alone, into a dark and burning sky. Somewhere, far beyond the maps, a violet ocean was waiting. 3 years. That was how long Envoy Ressign spent searching the dark. She followed faint things. The cold ghost of an old human ion trail, drifting between two dead stars. A small abandoned way station on a frozen moon, its lights long gone, its airlocks neatly sealed from the outside, as if someone had simply closed up a house before a long trip. A piece of debris no larger than her hand, which her ship's sensors identified as a fragment of a tool, a small wrench-like thing, with letters in a human script worn nearly smooth by time. She slept in short bursts. She ate without tasting. She read Daniel Rose's old speeches over and over, the few that the Concord archives had bothered to keep, and she began to understand things she had not understood when she was younger. In her 3rd year, she found a beacon. It was not what she expected. The Concord built beacons that screamed. Loud, bright, layered with warnings, demanding identification, threatening retaliation. This beacon did none of those things. It was a soft, slow pulse of green light, drifting alone in empty space. And it carried only a single short message, repeated in plain Concord trade language. If you are tired, follow this. If you are kind, you are welcome. If you are not, please turn around. We will not stop you. We will only ask. Ressign sat in her small bridge for a long time, reading those lines. Then she set her course to follow the soft green pulse. It led her, over 6 more months, through a strange and patient path. There were 3 more beacons along the way, each one gentler than the last. The final one did not even pulse. It simply hummed, low and warm, like a hearth fire on a cold night. And then, one morning, her ship slipped out of the long jump and into the orbit of a world. The world had violet oceans. It had 3 moons. Ressign pressed her hands against the viewport and wept quietly. A small voice came over her communications channel. It was a woman's voice, calm and unhurried. Concord courier ship. This is Hearth Control. We have been expecting you for about a week now. Welcome. Please follow the landing path we are sending. Take your time. There is no hurry. Ressign could not speak for a moment. You were expecting me? She said at last. We saw you cross the second beacon, the voice said. We thought you would be hungry. We have made soup. Ressign laughed. She had not laughed in 3 years. It came out broken. The landing field was a wide, soft meadow at the edge of a small city. The city did not look like a city at first. Its buildings curved low along the hills, with living roofs of grass and small trees, and Ressign could see narrow paths winding between them where people walked without hurry. Children ran along one of the paths, chasing a small bright bird. None of them stopped to stare at her ship as it descended. A woman was waiting at the edge of the field. She was tall, perhaps 50 years old, with short gray streaked hair and a long open coat. She wore no rank insignia. She carried no weapon. She was eating a piece of fruit. Envoy Ressign, she said, smiling. I am Captain Mira Holt. Welcome to Hearth. Ressign stepped down the ramp on legs that did not quite want to hold her. Captain Holt, I bring a message from the Galactic Concord. I know, Mira said gently. Come and have soup first. The message can wait one bowl. They walked together along a soft path between low houses. People they passed nodded politely at Mira and gave Ressign warm, curious looks, but no one approached. No one whispered. A small girl waved at her from a doorway. Ressign, surprising herself, waved back. They came to a wide open hall by the Violet Sea. Inside, an old man was waiting at a long wooden table. He was very old. His hair was thin and white, his hands spotted with age. But his eyes were clear, and they were kind, and Ressign knew them at once, even though she had only met him in person twice, 43 years ago, in a Senate chamber far away. Daniel Rose, she breathed. He smiled, slow and warm. Envoy Ressign, he said. Sit down. Eat. Then we will talk. She could not eat at first. She sat across from him with the bowl steaming in front of her, and she found that her hands were shaking. I am sorry, she said. The words came out rough. I am so sorry. The Concord was wrong. We were all wrong. I should have said more. I should have done more. I should have stood up when no one else would. I am so deeply sorry. Daniel reached across the table and put his old hand over hers. His skin was warm. Child, he said, we never needed an apology. We needed to be free. You gave us that. Even by accident, you gave us that. There is nothing to forgive. Ressign wept then, openly, the way she had not wept since she was a child. When she was calmer, she told them about the Vern. She told them about Telon Prime, about the lost fleets, about the worlds turning to dust, about the Senate vote, about Speaker Olith's trembling hand. She told them everything, and when she had finished, she pulled the sealed message from her coat and laid it on the table. The Concord asks, she said. They do not demand. Speaker Olith was very clear about that. We ask, with humility, and whatever you answer, we will accept. Mira Holt was leaning against a wooden post near the window, eating the last of her fruit. Daniel did not even open the message. He looked at Mira. Mira looked at him. Neither of them seemed surprised. We were going to offer anyway, Mira said quietly. We have been ready for almost 20 years. We were just waiting to be asked. Ressign stared at her. You knew? We hoped, Daniel said. We hoped that one day, the Concord would learn how to ask. That is all we ever wanted. He smiled, very softly. And now, he said, they have. The Senate world was burning when the human fleet arrived. The sky above the central city was the color of bruised fruit. 3 of the Concord's largest defense platforms had already fallen, and the great Vern shapes drifted slow and patient through the upper atmosphere, eating light, eating air, eating time itself. Below, on the surface, millions of Concord citizens were crammed into evacuation shelters that had no ships left to fill them. The Concord Navy had given up. There were no more fleets to send. It was Speaker Olith who saw them first. He was standing at a tall window in the Senate Tower, leaning on a thin wooden cane, watching the dark shapes slide across his sky. He had not slept in 4 days. He was very old now, and very ready to die, and he had quietly accepted that he would die soon, in this very tower, watching his civilization end. A small light bloomed at the edge of the upper sky. Then another. Then 12. Then 100. The lights did not flash. They did not roar. They simply appeared, one by one, the color of clean water, and they moved through the dark Vern shapes the way a hand moves through smoke. Speaker Olith's old eyes filled with tears. They came, he whispered. The human fleet did not announce itself. There was no broadcast, no anthem, no warning shot across the Verne lines. The lead ship, a long, quiet vessel called Soft Light Returning, simply opened a wide channel to the Concorde evacuation centers and said, in calm trade language, "Please bring your people to your rooftops. We will lift them. Please do not be afraid. We are here to help." The lifting began within minutes. The Verne responded the way they always responded. They turned their long shapes toward the human ships and began to consume the air around them. The first wave of attack should have, by every Concorde measure, vanished the human fleet within seconds. It did not. Something happened that no Concorde scientist would fully understand for a long time. The human ships did not fight back. They did not fire weapons. They did not raise force walls. Instead, they hummed. A soft, low, patient frequency rolled out from the human hulls in slow waves, and the Verne shapes, when those waves touched them, simply stopped. They did not die. They did not break apart. They became still, the way a loud child becomes still when an old grandmother gently takes their hand. And then, one by one, the Verne shapes turned around. They drifted away from the Senate world. Slow, patient, silent, the way they had come. Within 3 weeks, every Concorde world the Verne had not yet destroyed was free. In the Senate chamber, the air was very still. Speaker Olith sat on the central platform in a simple chair, no longer behind the high speaker's podium. He had asked for the chair to be moved. He had said he wanted to meet the humans the way a man meets a guest, not the way a king receives a subject. Captain Mira Holt entered the chamber alone. She wore the same long open coat she had worn on the day she met Envoy Ressign. She carried no weapon. She carried, in her arms, a small wooden box. She walked across the chamber floor without hurry. The senators watched her in silence. She came to the platform and stopped, and she gave Speaker Olith a small, respectful bow. Not deep, not low, just a polite, equal bow. "Speaker Olith," she said. "Captain Holt." She placed the wooden box gently on a small stand beside his chair. "This was sent by Daniel Rose," she said. "He could not come himself. He is very ill. He wanted you to have it." Olith's old hands trembled as he opened the box. Inside was a single pressed flower, soft blue, from the meadows of Hearth. There was a small folded note beneath it. Speaker Olith opened the note with great care. He read it once. Then he read it again. His eyes filled. The note said only this: "You were not cruel, old friend. You were only proud. Pride is a very human thing. We never blamed you for being a little human yourself. Rest well, Daniel." Speaker Olith wept openly, in front of the entire Senate, for the first time in his long life. When he could speak again, he turned to Mira. "Captain, the Concorde wishes to offer humanity full membership, leadership, a permanent seat at this table. We will rewrite our charter. We will rename our laws. Whatever you ask, we will give." Mira smiled gently. "Speaker, thank you. But no." The chamber stirred. "We will help when we are asked," she said. "We will trade. We will share what we have learned. We will send doctors and engineers and teachers to any world that wants them. But we will not live here. We will live on Hearth. Free. On our own terms. That is what we built. That is what we are. We hope you understand." Speaker Olith bowed his head. "I understand, Captain. I understand at last." The human fleet left the Senate world the next morning. Envoy Ressign stood at the edge of a wide observation deck and watched them go. The clean water-colored ships rose softly through the clearing sky, slow and unhurried, the way they had come. They did not perform a final flyby. They did not broadcast a final message. They simply lifted and were gone. Ressign remembered, then, something that Daniel Rose had said to her a long time ago, on a rainy day on Earth, when she had been young and had not yet understood. Some doors are worth closing softly. She finally understood. Humanity had not returned to conquer. They had not returned to punish. They had not even returned to be remembered. They had returned only to remind the stars of something the stars had forgotten. That kindness, dismissed, comes back stronger than any weapon. That dignity is a slower fire, but it burns the longest. That a people who can walk away with a quiet smile can also, one day, walk back with the same one, and lift the children of those who exiled them out of the burning sky, and ask for nothing in return. The last human ship crossed the upper atmosphere and slipped into the dark. Ressign watched it go, and on her old, tired face, she wore the smallest, softest smile. The same one humanity had worn, all those years ago, walking out of the Senate chamber and going home.